Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. For today's video, we got a video by Sporting, logically titled, How to Fix the San Antonio Spurs. So, starting the season off, man, I said straight up that I thought the Sacramento Kings could make the playoffs over the Spurs. And really, for the longest time, Spurs fans were just really coming at me, calling me the biggest haters out there and stuff like that, and just really coming through my neck and everything, bro. And all I was saying is, for one, I'm not a Spurs hater. I respect Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Greg Popovich, what they did for however many years they were doing it. My biggest issue is I thought, as constructed now, I thought it was kind of disrespectful how the team was assembled and kind of how it was assembled for Greg Popovich, going into the twilight of his NBA coaching years, man. Like, I just want the best team for San Antonio, and my biggest issue is that DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, they just have outdated style of plays. Although, I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge, I will admit, has been getting a bit better out there, but DeMar DeRozan is like, I don't know, man. I just think those two guys separately in different systems can be good, but together it's just a recipe for disaster. So Sporting logically is going to tell us how to fix the San Antonio Spurs, and I'll bet you 100 billion% I will agree with it.
So before this video even
not a hater,
started,
man. Not a hater, guys.
Out of the way. There's nothing broken with the Spurs as an organization.
100%.
They've been the most consistently successful
100%.
NBA franchise of the last 20 years, and arguably across any of the 4 major American sports leagues. So the title of this video and the content that comes after is not meant to imply any kind of disrespect toward the Spurs as a whole. And with that said, these are just my thoughts on how they could possibly turn this team around. Now, with that out of the way, the Spurs aren't necessarily at rock bottom at the moment. They still have plenty of young players and pieces moving forward, but this right now, this Spurs team, in terms of how well they're playing, as well as their future outlook,
I like the DeJounte Murray a lot.
As bad as it's been for them over the last 2 decades. And honestly, the reason that they're here, and one of the only reasons that they are where they are, is because they just didn't anticipate the whole Kawhi Leonard trade request thing to go down the way that it did. The last time that he was fully healthy and happy on this team, they were one of the best teams in the Western Conference and were probably going to challenge for a championship, but then everything hit the fan.
They probably should have treated him better, though.
He didn't want to be in San Antonio anymore. And so it isn't necessarily their fault that they're at this point, because I'm not sure that really anybody could have anticipated that, and whose fault that situation was is really still up in the air at this point. But with all those things said, let's just go ahead and review.
I feel like with Kawhi, he just feels like maybe he didn't like the direction the team was going. Like, he knew that, like, LaMarcus Aldridge wasn't, like, the prime player to put next to him and stuff like that. And maybe he just didn't feel like, because you feel like Kawhi fits the San Antonio system, like, as a player from a personality standpoint. I just think he kind of, like, foresaw the future, and he just didn't like what he was seeing. So it's like, all right, well, I got to take control of my own destiny. You got to give him respect for that.
View where the Spurs are at right now.
Got to give him respect for that.
So when you look at their long-term salaries, they don't really have anything long-term. Everything either expires in 2021, is a rookie contract, or is the new DeJounte Murray extension, at least in terms of their current roster as of this video.
It's not a bad contract for Murray.
On top of that, they have a group of 5 young players that are either good right now or could potentially be good down the road, in Murray and Derek White and Lonnie Walker and Keldon Johnson and Lucas.
Honestly speaking, like, that's a good point, because once these 4 guys, maybe 5 guys are up, nothing against Patty Mills, I just don't think he's worth $12, $13 million anymore. Once those guys' contracts are up going in that 2021 offseason, they're going to be a good place to sign some good free agents, because that's a really strong free agent class. So when you have good young players like that, a star might actually want to go to the team and play there.
Manchik. So those are definitely some positives for them looking towards the future. They have the salary flexibility to make some moves, and they have some young pieces that they can probably depend on. But the biggest question for this team moving forward is by far,
Tucker gotta give me some beard secrets, man.
Their 2 best players.
He got like a full one, bro. My shit can't grow and all. It's all patchy and stuff.
Aldridge. DeRozan has a player option for this offseason.
What's your secret?
He's likely to decline just given the free agency climate of the summer of 2020, which would make him a free agent, and Aldridge's contract runs through the summer of 2021. So there are 3 things to consider here in terms of the Aldridge-DeRozan part of this whole equation. First is, do they want to move on from one or both of them? Second is, if they do want to move on from them, when do they choose to do that?
I'd move on from DeMar first. I would keep LaMarcus Aldridge over DeMar DeRozan 100%.
And 3,
100%.
What kind of trade packages would they be looking for? And the answer to those 3
Not
questions
equal value.
is going to decide what kind of
From a name
roster this
standpoint.
team has moving forward and what kind of rebuild they undergo, because I think it's pretty clear at this point that there need to be changes to the roster, but how they handle the DeRozan and Aldridge situation is going to determine what kind of roster they have going forward.
They gotta do it sooner rather than later too.
Or trade one or both of them for just different win now pieces, and that would extend their competitive life as a team currently, while Greg Popovich is still the coach, and that certainly is an option. But to me, really the only real one, if you're looking at making this team a championship contender in the long term, is to trade away both LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan right now. And there's a couple of reasons for one why.
See, it's like, man, it's an interesting situation because, yeah, they should do it right now. They should do it and try to get some younger pieces. Even if those pieces do not equal what DeMar and LaMarcus is, at least from that standpoint, because the team, even if they make the playoffs this year, it's not going to be a good seeding. So it's like you might as well trade these guys while they're at least putting up decent numbers. I think they could get decent trade value at least. And then that way, it's like the team is low-key on a tank for this year. They'll get themselves another good draft pick, and they'll be ready to go. Instead of just waiting until the offseason to do it. Because like these guys are going to be good at least for a few wins this season.
I would want to trade them away, and two, why I think right now is a good time. In terms of why I would right now, there just doesn't appear to be a lot of real difference makers on the trade market at the moment. So if you're offering up two borderline all-star caliber players,
a lot of teams be biting at that.
Jump at that opportunity because there's about 5 to 7 teams in the league right now that are legitimate contenders, and getting either of these guys could certainly move the needle for them. And then moving forward beyond this season, the 2020 free agency class doesn't look all that
moving
great.
a needle
so
for any team right now.
A player of significance,
moving it back.
And this trade deadline is probably going to be a better opportunity to do that than in free agency. The other part of the timing of this is if one of these players suffers a significant injury, which is becoming increasingly likely as they get older, then their trade value is completely shot immediately, and that is a huge blow to the future plans for the Spurs. And then the last part is just, why would you wait? It's not like this team is a real threat at the top of the Western Conference.
Told you guys.
They can always turn things around
facts.
this season and end up being a playoff team, but nobody's really worried about this version of the Spurs in terms of making the conference finals or the finals. So what really is the point of waiting around for these guys' contracts to run out when you can trade them for value now? So the question, of course, is,
watch DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge get the 8th spot in the Western Conference, and Popovich just has his greatest coaching playoffs of all time, and they just win the championship. Just watch that happen, guys.
Where exactly could these guys potentially get traded to?
It's going to happen.
Well, for DeRozan, I would focus on teams like the Magic that need an all-star caliber guard to raise their ceiling and have some assets to trade that could interest the Spurs.
That's rough.
For example, they could potentially get a package of Aaron Gordon and Khem Birch to make the salaries work
in exchange
for DeRozan, giving themselves a nice young front court player to build around that's under contract
they need scoring
for the next couple of seasons in exchange for the free agent to be DeRozan. Alternatively, there are also teams like the Nuggets that could be
that dude's name was Khem Birch, by the way.
To raise their ceiling, but don't expect too much if you're a Spurs fan in exchange for DeRozan, simply because of his status as an upcoming free agent. The Magic or the Nuggets or teams like that are not going to want to give up a ton for a player that they're not sure they're going to be able to retain in the offseason, but there is still value.
And they could have waited just to get him too.
For DeRozan at this trade deadline. For Aldridge, on the other hand, things are a little bit trickier because most teams just don't need front court help as much as they do in the backcourt, unless it's a really good floor spacer. And
that type of front court help,
more for his post game and mid range shooting ability. However, a team like the Miami Heat could certainly use what Aldridge provides. They need a bit of scoring punch in the front court and could view Justice Winslow as expendable
because he needs
the ball to be most effective, and they already have guys like Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic. For example, the Spurs could end up getting Justice Winslow and Myers Leonard to make the salary work in exchange for Aldridge, pairing Winslow
That's a really
with
nice
Gordon
trade. I like that a lot.
Young player under contract
really nice
for the
trade.
next couple of seasons to build around, along with their incumbent group of 5 young players that I talked about in the beginning of the video. For the Heat, adding Aldridge ensures that they have every kind of player in the front court that they could possibly need. They have Kelly Olynyk as a floor spacer, Aldridge as a go-to scorer, and Bam Adebayo as a do-it-all player on both ends of the floor, which would really bolster.
And they don't really need Winslow when you win anymore.
So let's just say, for example, for the sake of argument, that the Spurs take both of these deals. Well, as I said, now they've got their core group of 5 guys that are young players on their roster currently. They add Winslow and Gordon to that group. They've got a lot of guys under contract over the next couple of seasons.
And they'll get a lottery
pick, whether it be rookie contracts or the Murray extension or Gordon and Winslow being under contract, and they still will have plenty of payroll moving forward as well to make moves, whether that be in the trade market or in free agency. And when you compare that to where they're at right now as a team, I'm not really sure why there would be much of an argument against this, other than the fact that potentially this could mean the end of Greg Popovich as Spurs head coach. He could look at this and say, you know what, I don't really want to coach this team anymore. I don't really want to be a part of a rebuild. I think it's...
But does he really want to coach where he's coaching right now? It's like... Greg Popovich, man, I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like, I just feel like what's going on with the Spurs right now is just disrespectful towards the end of this man's legacy as a coach.
Time to hang it up.
I don't know.
That would be a really unfortunate way for the Popovich era to end, but it doesn't really seem like it's going in all that positive of a direction at the moment.
Come coach the Pistons.
So you might as well ensure the long-term future of your franchise. And on top of that, if the team wanted to take it even a step further, there are other veterans on this roster that they could potentially move for value as well. There's Patty Mills, there's Rudy Gay, there's DeMar DeRozan. Even if someone like Jakob Poeltl is expendable to this team, to a team that needs front court depth, if they really wanted to tear everything down,
Patty Mills a beast.
There are pieces here
Mills.
that they could get future value for. However,
great name too.
I don't really think that they would do that because they would want to keep some semblance of a competitive team around for what could potentially be Greg Popovich's last season. Bro. I don't think they would just want to tear everything down completely and go into full tank mode or anything by trading away all these veterans. But still, trading away Aldridge and DeRozan would be the smart move to get significant future assets. And then maybe next year when some of these guys are on expiry.
I feel like Rudy Gay needs to go to Denver. I'm thinking about it, feels like a good fit. I don't know why. I have no reasoning. It just seems like a good fit. Just came to my mind.
Contracts, they can trade away guys like Mills and Gay and Carroll. Now, having said that, it isn't completely out of the question that they just trade everybody, because Woj and Zach Lowe recently said that a rebuild is coming in San Antonio, which is kind of the instigator for this video. But they also mentioned that it could be coming this offseason rather than at this trade deadline. It could be either of those timelines. So maybe it'll be more so in the offseason.
Yeah, maybe they want to see what happens this season. I guess can't blame them in that regard.
And
I guess.
From there for the Spurs, it's all about player development and drafting properly. And with their history, it really shouldn't be long before they have a solid young core with a much better future than what they have right now. And certainly, as I said, you could argue that there are other paths, like trading some of the young guys for another piece around Aldridge and DeRozan. And maybe, like I said, you could lose Popovich if you end up trading away these veterans, but this is still the best plan, in my opinion. And if this is the end of this Spurs run as we know it, it will be an absolutely historic and well-known and well-talked about one that will be really respected throughout the history of the NBA.
Well, but I feel like that run's already over. I felt like when Kawhi was off the team, that was the end. And this is just some weird, awkward phase that they're in where they're like, okay, we got two guys that are borderline all-stars, but it's not quite working out. So, yeah, I don't really chalk up LaMarcus and DeMar together as part of the Spurs run, unfortunately.
But all good things do at some point have to come to an end.
Just my opinion, though. Just my opinion.
It would be this
Don't make
season.
me right.
And again, maybe they'll turn some things around and they'll take a completely different path than the one that I've outlined in this video. But as of looking at their roster, their contract situation, their assets, and what could potentially be out there in return for Aldridge and DeRozan, this to me seems like by far the best possible path to fixing the San Antonio Spurs. But that is going to be the...
All right, that is the end of the video there. Yeah, I think he has a great plan right there. Trade some of the guys while you can. Try to get some good young athletic players. And just trust that draft process because the Spurs are notorious for drafting great players. 100% agree.